Just 3 days ago, on the afternoon of June 12, 2025, a day that began with the ordinary bustle of travel turned into a moment of profound national grief. Air India flight AI-171, a Boeing 787 Dreamliner, departed from Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel International Airport in Ahmedabad, its destination set for London's Gatwick Airport. On board were 242 souls, passengers filled with anticipation for their journey and a crew dedicated to their safety. The takeoff seemed routine, just another of the thousands of flights that connect India to the world. But within moments, this journey would be tragically and violently cut short, leaving a scar on the city of Ahmedabad and the hearts of countless families across the globe. The flight lifted off from runway 23 at precisely 1:39 p.m. Indian Standard Time. The powerful engines of the Dreamliner carried it into the sky, but something went terribly wrong almost immediately. The pilots, in their final moments of control, issued a Mayday distress call to air traffic control. Their chilling message reported a complete failure of the engine, a catastrophic event for any aircraft, especially during the critical phase of takeoff, when the plane is heavy with fuel and climbing steeply. Shortly after this desperate communication, the connection was lost. The aircraft, once a symbol of modern engineering, was now hurtling back towards the Earth, its fate sealed in those terrifying seconds. The passenger list tells a story of a truly international flight, a cross-section of humanity brought together for a single journey. Among the 242 people on board, the majority were 169 Indian nationals, many likely returning to homes or visiting family abroad. They were joined by 53 British nationals, 7 Portuguese citizens, and 1 Canadian national, each with their own stories and reasons for travel. The crew, dedicated professionals of Air India, were also among those whose lives were abruptly ended. The diversity of the victims underscores the global nature of this tragedy, with condolences and grief pouring in from multiple nations who lost their citizens in the disaster. This devastating incident marks the first fatal accident involving a Boeing 787 Dreamliner in 14 years, a stark reminder of the inherent risks of air travel, despite its remarkable safety record. The aircraft model had been a workhorse of long-haul routes, celebrated for its efficiency and passenger comfort. The sudden and complete failure of its engine raises urgent questions for the aviation industry and for Boeing. The Directorate General of Civil Aviation has already taken the first steps, launching a comprehensive investigation to uncover the precise sequence of events that led to this failure and to ensure such a catastrophe can be prevented in the future. The final moments of flight AI-171 ended in a scene of absolute devastation just 2 kilometers from the airport. The aircraft, heavily laden with fuel for its long flight to London, crashed directly onto the campus of the BJ Medical College in the Meghani area. It slammed into the rooftops of the college's canteen and several hostel buildings, structures that were occupied at the time. The impact was cataclysmic, resulting in a massive explosion and a subsequent fire that engulfed the wreckage and the buildings below. The quiet afternoon on the medical campus was shattered by an earth-shaking roar, followed by a pillar of black smoke that could be seen for miles around the city. The damage on the ground was extensive and horrific. The force of the crash collapsed sections of the hostel and canteen, trapping students and staff under tons of debris. The ensuing fire, fed by thousands of liters of jet fuel, created an inferno that complicated rescue efforts and tragically consumed much of the evidence and the victims. The scene that greeted the first responders was one of chaos and destruction, with twisted metal from the aircraft fuselage intertwined with the concrete and steel of the college buildings. The crash not only took the lives of those on the plane, but also inflicted a terrible toll on the unsuspecting people on the ground, turning a place of learning into a disaster zone. The human cost of this tragedy is staggering and continues to rise. As of the evening of June 12th, officials had confirmed the recovery of 284 bodies from the crash site. This grim tally includes the passengers and crew from the aircraft, as well as dozens of individuals who were inside the college buildings. Authorities have warned that the final death toll is expected to exceed 300, as recovery operations continue to sift through the wreckage. The intensity of the fire meant that many of the victims were charred beyond recognition, necessitating a painstaking process of DNA identification to bring closure to grieving families who are desperately awaiting news of their loved ones. Among the victims was a prominent public figure, Vijay Rupani, the former Chief Minister of Gujarat, and a senior leader of the Bharatiya Janata Party. His presence on the flight added a layer of public mourning to the already heartbreaking event. Mr. Rupani was a well-known and respected political figure in the state, and his death has sent shockwaves through the political community. The loss of such a notable individual alongside hundreds of other citizens has amplified the sense of collective grief felt across Gujarat and the entire nation, highlighting that tragedy does not discriminate and can affect every walk of life in the most unexpected and brutal ways. In the midst of the immense loss and widespread devastation, a single miraculous story of survival has emerged. Ahmedabad's police commissioner, G.S. Malik, confirmed that out of the 242 people aboard flight AI-171, there is only one known survivor. While many individuals were initially found unconscious at the scene, tragically, all but one succumbed to their injuries. The authorities have not yet released the name or the nationality of this lone survivor, respecting their privacy and focusing on their critical medical needs. This individual's survival against all odds offers a fragile glimmer of hope in an otherwise dark and sorrowful narrative, a testament to the unpredictable nature of fate, even in the most dire circumstances. The rescue and recovery operation launched in the immediate aftermath of the crash was a monumental undertaking. It involved a coordinated effort from multiple agencies, including the National Disaster Response Force, the Central Industrial Security Force, the Indian Army, and local police and fire departments from Ahmedabad. These brave men and women worked tirelessly around the clock, battling the raging fire and navigating the unstable, debris-strewn site. Their primary mission was to search for survivors, and then to begin the solemn and difficult task of recovering the deceased with the utmost dignity and respect, providing a crucial service to the families waiting for answers. The stories of the victims represent a profound and heartbreaking loss. Each of the 242 people on the plane, and the dozens more on the ground, had a life, a family, and a future that was stolen in an instant. There were families traveling together, students heading abroad for their education, business professionals on their way to meetings, and tourists eager for adventure. The Indian nationals, British citizens, Portuguese, and the lone Canadian on board were all part of a global community, connected by this shared, tragic fate. The process of identifying the victims is slow and emotionally taxing, but it is a vital step in honoring their memory and providing a semblance of closure for their grieving relatives. The emotional toll on the families of the victims is immeasurable. In the hours and days following the crash, airport terminals in both Ahmedabad and London became centers of anguish and uncertainty as relatives gathered, desperate for any information. The confirmation of the near-total loss of life has transformed that anxiety into profound grief. These families now face the agonizing process of formal identification and the long, difficult journey of mourning. The stories of those lost will be told and remembered, not as statistics in a news report, but as cherished individuals whose absence leaves an irreplaceable void in the lives of those who knew and loved them. In response to this immense tragedy, both Air India and the Indian government have moved swiftly to provide support for the affected families. The Tata Group, the parent company of Air India, has announced a significant compensation package. They have pledged rupees 1 crore, approximately $120,000, to the families of each person who perished in the crash. Furthermore, the company has committed to covering the full medical expenses for all those injured, including the lone survivor and the victims on the ground. Recognizing the damage inflicted upon the community, the Tata Group has also promised to provide support to rebuild the destroyed hostel at BJ Medical College, a gesture of solidarity with the city of Ahmedabad. The government has echoed these commitments, with officials from both the state and central levels expressing their condolences and promising comprehensive assistance. Support centers have been established in Ahmedabad and London to provide information, counseling, and logistical help to the families of the victims. These centers are staffed with grief counselors and airline representatives to guide families through the difficult procedures of victim identification and the repatriation of remains. The focus is on providing a compassionate and coordinated response, ensuring that the families do not feel abandoned during this incredibly painful time. The government has assured the public that every possible resource will be deployed to support them. The most critical task ahead is the investigation into the cause of the crash. The Directorate General of Civil Aviation has already launched a formal inquiry. A key piece of evidence will be the aircraft's flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder, often referred to as the black boxes. Recovery teams will be meticulously searching the wreckage for these devices, as they hold the crucial data and conversations that can explain the final moments of Flight AI-171. The investigation will scrutinize every aspect of the flight, from the aircraft's maintenance history and the engine's performance records, to the actions of the flight crew, to determine the root cause of the engine failure. The findings of this investigation will have far-reaching implications for the aviation industry, particularly for Boeing and the operators of the 787 Dreamliner fleet worldwide. Any identified mechanical flaws or procedural shortcomings will likely lead to mandatory safety directives and modifications for all similar aircraft. For the families, while no investigation can bring back their loved ones, a clear and transparent explanation of what went wrong is a necessary step toward justice and closure. The promise now is that through thorough investigation and unwavering support, lessons will be learned to prevent such a tragedy from ever happening again, and that the memory of those lost will be honored with action and accountability.